This is Pat's Answers, and I'm Pat. And the title of this episode is Pointless Politics, Why Voting No Misses the Whole Point. And it does. Have you ever noticed how state politics has a special gift for taking something already complicated and making it completely gloriously pointless? Not evil, not catastrophic, just useless, like sharpening a spoon, like putting windshield wipers on a fish, or like installing a screen door on a submarine and calling it flood control. Today's episode is about the beautiful little myth that voting no on Constitutional Amendment 4 somehow protects democracy because it keeps ballot initiatives easy to pass. Sounds noble, right? Sounds like something recited by a guy hugging a framed Constitution while an eagle screams overhead. Unfortunately, it also misses the actual problem by about 3 zip codes. Because the issue isn't who can get a proposition onto the ballot. The issue is really who can afford it. And those are 2 very different things. Let's start with the fairy tale of the People's Proposition. We're sold this fairy tale that the ballot initiative is the purest form of democracy. The people speak, the establishment trembles, and liberty sings. Sure it does. It's a great story, but unfortunately, it's also complete fiction. The popular image looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. A few neighbors sitting around folding tables in a church basement, drinking bad coffee out of styrofoam cups, scribbling ideas on a yellow pad. That's democracy in action. Yeah. Except that's not what happens. Most propositions aren't born in church basements. They're born in glass conference rooms, surrounded by lawyers, polling firms, data analysts, marketing consultants, and executives whose daily lunch budgets exceed your annual property tax. What gets marketed to you as grassroots is pure astroturf. Political plastic grass. Looks healthy from a distance, feels fake the second you touch it. The financing doesn't come from passionate citizens. It comes from people who can afford entire teams dedicated to manufacturing citizen movements. That's not cynicism. That's just basic logistics. So we need to follow the money because it always knows the way. Let's do some basic arithmetic. Propositions don't just magically appear on your ballot. They cost money, millions of dollars. You need paid signature gatherers, paid attorneys, paid advertising, paid organizers, and paid experts to explain why the other side's paid experts are lying. The whole circus looks less like a civic debate and more like a NASCAR race where every single car is plastered in corporate sponsor logos. So, if qualifying an initiative costs millions, who's actually writing them? The retired school teacher? The local garden club? The guy down the street holding on to 3 VCRs just in case? No. It's the folks with the deep pockets, massive infrastructure, and blank checkbooks. The initiative process hasn't been the voice of the people for a long time. It's the voice of whoever can fund a statewide marketing blitz. So, exactly what are you protecting? And here's where the opposition argument gets truly bizarre. The opponents tell us to vote no on Amendment 4 because making the process harder destroys democracy. They say it builds higher walls and bigger mazes. Okay, let's pretend that's true. The walls get taller, the rules get tougher. Who gets hurt? The genuine grassroots movement that already couldn't afford the multi-million-dollar price tag? Or the well-funded special interest groups with teams of lawyers, donor networks, and media buyers on speed dial? Let's do a history check. The people with helicopters aren't intimidated when you raise the height of the fence. The same moneyed interests that climb today's wall will climb tomorrow's wall. When the opponents insist they're protecting democracy by keeping the bar low, they're defending a system that already heavily favors organized wealth. That's like claiming you're protecting public access to a country club by dropping the dress code, but you're keeping the $100,000 initiation fee. The obstacle was never the necktie. But voting no feels good, but it accomplishes nothing. Voting no might make you feel brave, like you're standing between the helpless public and some villainous politician. But if your goal is stopping special interest influence, voting no accomplishes precisely zero. Special interests already own the venue. They wrote the rule book. They hired the referees, sponsor the halftime show, and sell you the overpriced popcorn. Believing that preserving the current process restores grassroots power is like believing a casino suddenly becomes fair because you didn't move the slot machines. The structure remains, the incentives remain, the money remains. If your reason for voting no is to protect democracy from wealthy interests, you're basically trying to fight a flash flood by adjusting the wallpaper. Newsflash, the flood doesn't care about your wallpaper. Now let's look at the uncomfortable case for voting yes. Look, Amendment 4 is not a magic cure. It's not going to hand constitutional power back to bowling leagues and local PTAs. Let's not hallucinate, put down the mushrooms. But there is a cold, practical argument for voting yes. Constitutions are foundations of law, not suggestion boxes. They aren't customer comment cards or the political equivalent of updating your streaming password. The easier a constitution is to amend, the more it becomes attractive for wealthy special interests to lock their personal policy preferences in permanently. Raising the hurdle at least forces constitutional changes to face a higher bar than a standard TV ad campaign. Now, it won't stop money in politics, but at least it connects to the rules of basic reality. So, what's the takeaway? If you actually want citizen-driven democracy, stop obsessing over procedural tweaks, change the economics, lower the financial barriers, reduce the dependence on paid signature armies, make it possible for normal human beings to compete without some hedge fund backing them. Until then, arguing that voting no saves grassroots democracy is like frantically rearranging the lawn furniture while an E5 tornado is tearing down the street. The furniture was never the problem. If you vote yes, at least you're acknowledging that the foundational law of the state should clear a high bar. If you vote no, thinking you're saving the little guy, take a closer look at who financed the billboard telling you to do it. Because around here, the loudest defenses of the people's process usually comes from the people who bought the process in the first place. And that's the point that everyone keeps stepping around. This has been Pat's Answers, where we sift through the noise, poke the myths, and drink from the fountain of wisdom while everyone else is arguing over who gets to hold the cup. Stay skeptical, watch your wallet, and whenever somebody tells you they're protecting democracy, check who paid for the billboard. This is Pat's Answers, and I'm Pat.